All righty, we are back with the Beyond the Coach podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kelsey Nanini.
And I am Chris Sweet. And
You
I am
wanna?
not feeling well today. I want to warn all of the listeners that one, I don't sound this way because I smoked a pack a day. I sound this way because I think my allergies have converted into a cold. So if I sniffle, if I cough, I'm going to try to mute myself and catch myself before it happens. But fair warning for all of your ears, and thank you for listening.
So you hear a lot of my voice today, and then Chris is gonna chime in when she needs to with the yeah. And probably a little bit more, I'm sure. But today we just wanted to do like a really quick, spicy pod. Probably just on the things that you need to hear, a little tough love from us.
I
Because I
feel
think
like
coaches need to
we've
hear it.
I feel like we've been spicy lately in our content
Yeah.
as far as this topic goes. Like I feel like the both of us have been just on one with discussing this, so I'm excited.
Yeah. We really just wanted to dive into like you kind of setting the standard as a coach and not having like what is it? It's not a double-edged sword, but like double standards
Yeah.
essentially as a coach. And how to really be a leader in your craft because one thing that I've always stood on is like you can't expect others to do something if you are not willing to do it yourself. One of the biggest examples I always use is like the coaches who require their clients to track macros no matter what. There's no give. It's like you track macros or you're not in my program, but they don't track macros. It's like you can't expect that your clients are going to do this thing if you aren't also willing to do it. Um, that even goes along with like your clients not tracking on the weekends, you getting on them and requiring them to track on the weekends when you yourself are taking weekends untracked. And so when you are coaching, it's so important that your coaching philosophy matches your life. If you require everyone to do something, then you have to be doing it as well. Where that's where like a more flexible coaching that is actually customized to the client comes in. And I think it's so important to have that aspect. I don't believe that custom coaching is requiring everyone to do the same thing. And that's not that like you're like, oh well, I set everyone macros, but they're not the same for every client. It's like, well, not every client, like macros aren't conducive to every client. And so being flexible as a coach is huge, but that's not really what I wanted to talk about. It's more so just you have to do the thing if you are coaching the thing.
And if you're resisting it, like I made this Instagram post literally this past week that was like, if you're resisting it, your clients probably are too. Like, and if that is even what you're showing on your social media, like I don't think that, your social media is to be the motivator for clients. I don't think that that's like a very consistent qualifier. But if you are continuously talking about like how you're not tracking on the weekends and how you're not doing this, or if you're like speaking into existence your own resistance, your clients are going to kind of follow that and be resistant to it as well. And you likely will not know how to coach someone through that. Like you likely won't know how to coach through someone's resistance to tracking on the weekends or their resistance to navigating holidays. Like if you're someone who the holidays come and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to untrack every single holiday. But meanwhile, you're trying to give structure to your clients on a holiday, it's kind of hard. You have to be able to embody like the literal like client journey. You need to be able to say that you can do that and embody it. And that's not to say too that on the topic of like tracking macros as an example, if you don't track your macros, I'm not like, we're not saying you have to track your macros 24/7, but if you have not successfully, continuously, consistently tracked your macros for the same period of time that you are asking your own clients to do so, then that is obviously a big issue because you're not going to know how to coach someone like through that longevity of tracking. If you have not tapered yourself properly off of tracking into your intuitive eating or whatever you want to call it, you're likely not going to know how to transition a client yourself into intuitive eating. If you intuitively eat, but your intuitive eating habits are actually under fueling yourself, right? Because that's something that a lot of people run into when they kind of move away from tracking, then it's probably going to be really hard to understand what you need to evaluate for a client and how to coach someone through intuitive eating or mindful eating and kind of weaning off of the tracking as well.
Yeah. And I think there's some nuance to this as well. We recently had a we recently got a little bit fired up about a conversation that it's like if you aren't doing something that you're coaching your clients on, for instance, you have a client who comes to you and wants to run a half marathon. You, however, have never ran a half marathon. You can't coach them. I strongly disagree with this. Um, and that's where there's nuance to this topic because things come up, and the coolest part about being a coach is watching your clients grow, watching them grow physically, mentally, emotionally. And sometimes that comes at a pace that maybe you haven't had it. Maybe that's something you have on your radar. I coached my first client that did a half marathon through a half marathon in 2022. And I had no interest in running a half marathon, but I also thought it was so cool and so fun to do it. She actually ended up running two and ended up improving her time. I want to say it was by like 30 minutes.
Wow.
And then another client who did her first one in like September of 23 and then again in May of 24. Same thing, improved her time by like 30 minutes. I have never done a half marathon before. I tried. My body said, nay, nay, not today. Not this year. But just because you haven't done something like that before doesn't mean you can't coach it. I think same thing goes with like weight loss. I have never ever lost more than 15 pounds maybe through a horrible diet, mind you. That was not great. But I've coached clients to lose 60 pounds, 65 pounds. And yes, I absolutely agree that there is an emotional component that comes on with coaching that if you don't understand it, like I will never understand it. Well, I mean, maybe eventually I will understand. Right now, I don't understand what it's like to need to lose that amount of weight. But that doesn't mean that I can't be empathetic towards that situation and be able to coach it because I've educated myself on how to do it. And I think that also goes to it. If you have a client that is wanting to run a half marathon, that is wanting to lose a substantial amount of weight, that's wanting to do a triathlon, wanting to do whatever it may be, you can't just be like, yeah, I'll coach it. Like, sure. And then just, throw some random shit out there.
Yep.
Educate yourself. And that's, I think, where I want to hammer it in. It's like, yes, the emotional component matters, but so does the actual scientific background of what is going on, and actually doing a game plan. And that's where it comes in of like properly educating yourself. Like as a strength and conditioning coach, I haven't ran a half marathon, but that doesn't mean that I'm not educated and certified to do so.
Yeah.
Sure, like, if you're running a half marathon and you want to be competitive, then you probably should get a specific running coach. If you're just running one to like run one and say you did it and challenge yourself in a way, like you don't have to go and get an additional coach. Like just have the support of a knowledgeable coach that actually cares about you. I think
Yeah.
is such an important thing.
Well, and we use this comparison when we were talking about it of like physical therapists, like a physical therapist who's helping a athlete with a torn ACL rehab their knee, all because they haven't necessarily torn their ACL doesn't mean that they can't help or that they don't have the skill set to properly, obviously rehab you. There is that emotional component where maybe they've never been injured before, right? And they can't speak to that fully. But I love my physical therapist because like he even brought in the topic of like mental health with me. He was like, hey, when I was going through the thick of my back injury and was really just like 2 years of just not being able to operate how I wanted to, he even came to me and he was like, hey, like, are you talking to a therapist? Like, he's like, don't take this the wrong way. Like, but are you talking to someone about like these feelings, because it's a lot. And I think that just goes to show there are the right resources. If you need a little extra assistance, there are communities, there are things that exist, but the skill set that someone learns doesn't halt them from their ability to help you. Like coaches can learn how to program for a half marathon. They can learn how to program for a high rocks. They can learn how to program for powerlifting meets. But you are not incapable of doing so all because you haven't been there. And I think that that's, like you said, it's very nuanced. There's definitely like two sides to it where you can kind of say, well, this, but this. But I think when it comes to the basic habits that you are helping your client with, like a habit that, for example, tracking on the weekends, is not the same as like learning to train for a half marathon. Like that is,
Mhm.
those are two very different
Right.
things. And
Exactly.
I have never ran a half marathon, but I have tracked multiple weekends for years on end to learn how to track through the weekends. You may not have trained for a half marathon, but you have had to navigate how to eat out at a restaurant. Like those are two
Right.
totally different levels of extremes. And then it's also like, what is stopping you from doing that thing? For me, I've been on a pain journey for the last 2.5 years. There is nowhere in the near horizon that I am running a half marathon or doing a high rocks or doing a powerlifting meet. And that's due to my own limitations that I have. And I have to respect that the same way I would want any client to respect their boundaries. But that doesn't halt me from tracking my macros, from still following a workout regimen and having the consistency needed. You can make so many excuses. You don't have to make every excuse for yourself, like when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to growth, I think is the overall biggest thing. It's like if as a coach, you have to be willing to grow and evolve. You can't be the coach from 2018 who's, to be honest, like it's just still doing the tactics from 2018, still coaching if it fits your macros and not paying attention to micronutrients, still like doing the same exact things and never evolving with the times. Um, I would say like this is such a simple thing, but like using Everfit or using a program like Everfit, Trainerize, those kinds of things. Like if you're still doing old fashioned like email and spreadsheets, like your clients probably are evolving with the times as well, unless they like that. Like I think it's just that's a very simple like example, and that may be a poor example, but um, using outdated stuff and not evolving is what is going to keep you in the same spot, if that makes sense. And one thing that one of my clients said, because I'm sharing my journey about my injury, first, I'm not like qualified to rehab you through an injury. Like that's not what I'm doing. That's why we have a physical therapist on our team. But I damn sure understand the emotional component of it. And again, that helps to an extent. Um, but she was saying like it's really cool to have someone who's going through this and growing so that like, when I get injured, like I have someone who I can lean on, right? And that's where there is some again nuance to the topic. The growth also comes from continuing to learn. And I think that's where what it boils down to with this topic. Continuing to evolve with the times, like that's why one of the coaches that we coach that I've coached since August of 23, she was like, I just really appreciate that you're always learning and investing in yourself because now I, as a result, get to also learn that thing. And I think that's what it comes down to is if you're comfortable, if you're not growing as a coach, your clients are probably not growing to their highest capacity either. Because you, unfortunately, like are a direct reflection
Hmm.
of clients and vice versa. If your clients are not tracking all the time, aren't being super consistent, aren't adhering to the plan, are you adhering to the plan and being consistent and, tracking accurately? Like it's this weird conundrum and I don't know how if that's the right word. I don't know how this works and I don't know how clients know it, but they know it. They feel it. When you are not walking the walk and setting the example, your clients are probably also struggling. And I think as a coach, you're like, there's no way it's not related. My clients just don't listen to me. I wouldn't listen to someone who's not doing the thing that they say they are. Like,
Yeah.
hell no. And so I think that's a really big thing to ask yourself is like, if you're complaining about your clients not showing up in the way you want to, you want them to show up, are you showing up
Yeah.
in the way?
I think there's also a level to just learning empathy where like let's say someone we had a very like sensitive situation come up. It was a couple years ago where one of our clients her mom got cancer, like terrible, like terminal diagnosis, happened very quickly. And it was one of those things where, like, you can be frustrated by someone's inaction, but do you need to practice the empathy to just even try to understand what they're going through? While, yes, we know that like working out helps your mental health and all these things, you have to also put yourself sometimes in the shoes, even if you've never been in the shoes. And I think this is what makes or breaks good coaches is one, are you willing to learn not only like the modalities of coaching and the logistics and the knowledge and the education behind the science of coaching and behind the science of training and the science of nutrition, but are you also actually able to expand your own mindset skills to help clients through really difficult scenarios? You know, I've obviously been very blessed to not have to experience like what that client was going through, but we had to also modify the standard for that client based on what was happening. So sometimes if a client isn't doing all the things, yes, look in the mirror and be like, but am I doing all the things? Am I a reflection of this? And then also it's like, but am I also like modifying and using my skills to modify for this client the same way that you have likely needed modifications in your own life and in your own space? And you don't have to be a perfect coach by any means. Like I've gone through like, hello, we talked about how the last Q1 just really did us in, did a number on us. Were we perfect? No. Like, was I perfect? You know, with going through everything with Bo the last few weeks, like, no, I was not perfect, right? I missed some workouts. I had some moments, but I think where I like to think my skill set is that I'm very honest with my audience and I'm very actionable where it comes to like, here's how I'm working on this. Like, here's how I'm actually still working on something to move a needle forward versus sitting in inaction than anything else. So I still think that even if you aren't perfectly showing up, there's still an example you can set for your clients. It's just a matter of, are you setting the example the same way that you would want a client in that scenario to be navigating it? If I had a client going through grief, which I've had lots of clients go through grief, in that situation, I would want them to handle it, you know, in their own way. Grief in and of itself, I say it's weird. But I also want to have an example or set something for them where if they are going through grief, here are things you can do for yourself in that moment. Here's how showing up looks for someone who's going through this scenario. And the more that you build up scenarios with clients, like the more your skill set's going to learn as a coach too. You just have to be willing to work with someone through imperfect moments. Like there are so many coaches that get frustrated at their clients not being perfect. And I'm like, but do you want them to be perfect? Like, is that really the sustainable longevity type of mindset we want to have? Probably not. Like they're not going to be perfect for the rest of their lives. But you can't just complain about imperfections if the standard's too high, even for yourself. Like if you can't even reach the standard you're setting your client to, who are you to be judging anyone for not hitting that either? And that's where I just see some coaches like they get so frustrated. Oh my God, my client didn't do this, this, and this. Okay, let's go reflect on your past week though. Like, did you do this, this, and this? And that's just the point. Like it's obviously like it all comes back to the same concept of just like you have to even just be an embodiment of what that is for your clients. It's an energetics thing. And our mentor Kendall always talks about like, you know, is there an energetics leak? Like where's the leak happening that then you can dial in on? And that's really the biggest thing to address as a coach is, do you have a leak in your own life that is causing the energetic shift within your clients, and within how you're showing up? You might not even notice it, but maybe you went from being like the most present coach one week to then next week being like not. And that can be a really big challenge for clients. So you also have to build sustainability for yourself in the mix.
Yeah. And I think emotional intelligence is a really good point. It's something that I feel like I had to work on a lot in the beginning of coaching, because when you first start as a trainer, you're like, I mean, when I was a personal trainer, I'm just like, okay, I just like coach you on doing workouts and that's it. And then you leave and you come back and there's no nutrition involved. There's no lifestyle involved. There's nothing really. And something I really had to learn was like how to ask the right questions, how to understand someone's life and what they're going through, even if I've never been in that situation before. Somehow I've always naturally attracted a lot of moms, and I still to this day have no idea why, but I love my mom clients. Like I think that they're badass. I think they're incredible. I think they're superheroes, and I don't know how, again, but I have done a lot of the research, even like being super um what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like not reflective, but like just paying attention to when I'm around a parent and how their life changes when especially your
Observant?
toddler. Observant. Yes, I've been very
Yeah.
observant around friends that are moms, family that are moms or dads, and how they have to operate and how their life changes. And I think even knowing that in like an occupation as well. I think
Yep.
for coaches, it's very easy to lack the emotional intelligence because we have never walked in their shoes. For instance, for me, like I have never actually for 4 months of my life, I had a 9 to 5. And then I had like a side job after that, like right after college. Like I worked at the college that I worked at or that I graduated from like June to October on a temporary little thing. So I've never known really what it was like to work a 9 to 5 because at the time I was like just living with a friend that was a roommate, my roommate. And like I didn't live by cadence. So like I didn't come home to a spouse. I didn't come home to kids. I have no idea what that's like. But it doesn't mean that I can't have the emotional intelligence to understand, like to come from a place of understanding. Like setting a plan for a client doesn't mean that you have to have done the thing, but you need to do your best to understand the thing.
Yeah.
Like a mom that has 3 kids, a husband that maybe travels for work or works really, really long hours, that mom is going to have a lot harder time getting to the gym 5 days a week.
Yeah.
It's going to have a lot harder time fully tracking their macros and having like the mindset to be able to just be in my fitness pal putting things in when their kid is crying that their dino nuggets are frozen or their chicken nuggets not shaped like a dinosaur. Like I don't
Can we
know.
just talk about how Dino Nuggets are in fact superior? You're like, they're just
My
so
brother would
freaking
literally
good.
not eat chicken nuggets unless it was a dino nugget. Like could be the same exact brand. If it was not a dino nugget, he could not eat it.
So
These are
funny.
dino nuggets now. Like we used to just microwave them. There was no air fryer. Like
Oh, that
dino
would be
nuggets in the air
so
fryer? They
good.
don't even have them
Oh,
at Costco anymore. I'm like, where do you get a dino nugget now? Like
that's
we bought them at
amazing.
Costco.
Yep.
Now there's Bear. Um, but yeah, I think it's just, and not even just parents, but like a career for it. Like I will say nurses,
Hmm.
hardest. They're so tough to coach because I've never worked overnight or swing shift. Anyone really that works overnight or swing shift or 12-hour shifts, like I have never done that, but that doesn't mean that I can't work to like put myself in the shoes of what they're going through and
Yeah.
better understand what a career looks like.
Yep.
And I think if you're not willing to do that, you're going to really struggle to coach those people. And I think I just have like really practiced awareness of
Yeah.
like, okay, well, let me put my thinking cap on of like, what is this client going through? It's not just their goals. It's not just um, their workout schedule and their nutrition. It's like, what does their lifestyle look like? Which is actually why in the first 7 days of coaching with Apex, we do a time audit, which I always tell people like at the beginning on the sales call, wherever it's at, I'm like, hey, first 7 days, we're actually putting you through a time audit. And I know that seems super weird, but we actually just want to know what your entire life looks like from Monday to Sunday. What exactly are you doing? How often are you scrolling TikTok, scrolling Instagram? Like, just be honest with me because I really want to know what your schedule capacity looks like.
Yeah.
And so that can be really helpful in us actually like slightly understanding what their needs are.
Yeah, and I think like the reality is you're even if you've never been a mom, even if you've never been a nurse, even if you've never been a teacher or a corporate worker or a flight attendant, like, if you've never been these things, that's not the point. You don't have to be the things to coach the person within that thing, but you have to be able to coach the elements that you are trying to get across to them, which is like the structure, the effort, the feedback, the things that you are giving someone. And if you are resistant to those 3 things, like if you yourself are resistant to feedback, if you yourself are resistant to structure and resistant to putting in effort or putting that in that, extra mile of work, and you expect your client to embrace that, it's kind of an out of alignment experience. It's like you are a leader at the end of the day, and leading comes from not necessarily fully knowing the full picture and what that experience is like, but you at least need to know what the structure can be and what the effort can be and what the feedback can be. And the coaches who genuinely do grow the fastest are the ones who put themselves in the client's seat. Like they are able to try to put themselves there. And the coaches who say that, every person has the same 24 hours in a day is incorrect. Like, I'm sorry, but the mom
Tag me.
the mom of 3 does not have the same 24 hours in a day as you as me as a coach with no children, right? Like I selfishly, it's a privilege right now to have the amount of time that I have. My mom clients do not have that same privilege. They have their own privilege and their own like amazing experience being a mother, but they do not have the same 24 hours in a day. They have nap times and school pickups and drop-offs and commitments and all of these things. My nurses, when they're switching back to night shift, their a whole day is committed to just them swapping, like trying to get back on now the night schedule. It's not the same 24 hours, and you have to be okay coaching your client through the inconveniences. Like to us, it's an inconvenience. To them, it's their life. Like it is literally their life and their routine. So I think it's just more like the elements of it, like coaching someone through structure and effort and giving feedback. Like you yourself as a coach need to have that be something in your life, depending on what your 24 hours are. Like, what does that look like for you? That's the biggest thing. It's not, again, having to know how to run the half marathon and having to have done all those things. You're not going to go get a career in nursing just to say that you know how to coach a nurse. Like you don't need that. That's not the qualifier for success. The qualifier for success is your ability as a coach to meet your client where they're at, empathize with them, be a leader, have authority, have knowledge and education behind what you are teaching and practicing, and setting a standard to just always be continuous as far as your own development and your own growth for the sake of your clients. Because that's our role at the end of the day as coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, when you're being super prescriptive versus flexible, like people feel that. I just had a call this week with someone who ended up signing up with us, and she was like, I had a really bad experience online at one point with a coach who just gave me a plan, and it felt like it was just the same plan for everyone. And people feel that as well. And so that's where lifestyle does come in. And so I think like really the point we're getting across is you don't have to live your client's life to be setting a standard for the client, right? Like,
but can you meet that standard? Like,
right. Like, yeah, exactly. If you're asking a client to do something, are you willing to do it yourself? Doesn't mean that you have to do it, but could you do it? And I often find that, even if you're, I think that goes two ways, aggressive and also not aggressive enough, because I think some coaches are very hesitant to, the spicy conversation. I know your coach talks about this on social media sometimes, who is actually my past coach as well, who's awesome, but she talks about dropping calories to like 1,300, 1,400 calories, which in reality, like that seems to everybody, they're like, that's way too low. But like, depending on somebody's BMR, maybe it's not. And if you aren't willing to drop that, it's like, are you willing to get uncomfortable and hungry in a deficit, right? Like a deficit is not fun. It's not a good time. So I think it's just like going one of two ways. It's like, are you willing to go outside of your comfort zone to get creative as a coach and like get your clients results? And so walking the walk looks different across the board. You don't have the same goals as your client, but are you still willing to do the things you're coaching on? Have you done the things you're willing to coach on? Like the coach that's never been through a reverse diet or never done a surplus, but you coach your clients through a surplus. Those things are simple. Those things are things you could just do. It's not like you have to devote 6 months of your life to training. And so I think it's just going through those things yourself. If you're, this is the biggest one. If you're trying to sell someone on coaching to coach with you online and you have never hired a coach, I would not buy from, I would not, at this point in my life, if I'm going to hire someone, I'm hiring somebody who has had a coach themselves. Yeah. Because it's really not that hard to hire a coach. It's not. I strongly believe, maybe not at all times. I mean, I went through, we've talked about this on the podcast, like 2018 to now, I've probably only had a full year off of coaching. So in 7 years, I've like over time had like a full year off. I took like 3 weeks off of having a coach, and then I hired back my old physical therapist that's a virtual physical therapist from my first ACL injury. So it's like, I only got so far without a coach. Because it's just helpful. It's less stress on you when you have one.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to look in the mirror and to say like, to be frustrated with a situation, right? If someone comes to a sales call and they're like, "Oh, I need to talk to my partner," and then they come up with all these financial objections, but then in the same breath, you're getting on calls with, potential coaches, and then you're making the same excuses. You're living in the scarcity, you're living in the fear. You're never going to be able to put yourself in the position to like actually work through that with someone on a sales call.
Yeah.
I talk about all the time with people, especially my business clients. Like I'm like, hey, listen, my first ever mentor, like business mentor that I hired, my like 45-minute sales call literally turned into like 2 hours. It's crazy. 2 hours simply because I was objection central. I was like, but this and this and this and this and this. I kept making excuses, but my partner and the money and the da 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 da, whatever. The goal still existed. And on that sales call, I actually called Kenneth and, was like, hey, I'm on a call with a mentor. He knew that I was getting on a call with a mentor. I remember telling him the investment and he was like, okay. He's like, okay. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, and in his brain though, like I'm very thankful to have a great husband who like has always believed in myself more than I believe in myself sometimes. Like he has always said like you're literally building a business. You're going to make this money back. Like you're doing this stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the investment when I know that the input and the output like are going to kind of equal each other out, and one eventually is going to pay out more than the other one is going to.
Yeah.
And I think that goes though with like, can you have the difficult conversations with your own partner? Do you know how to confront your partner with this stuff? I didn't just come to Kenneth and say, hey babe, like, this business mentor wants like $10,000. It wasn't $10,000, but we'll just use an absurd number right now. It's not like I did that. I came to Kenneth. He knew I was on a call. We had talked about me being on this call prior. He knew I wanted to scale a business. I started with telling him about how the call went. I started with telling him about like the things that really stood out to me, the, features that they have, the things that would help me, why it would help me, why I think it's important. And then I lead into the price of it. Do you know on a sales call how to help someone through that when they're about to confront their partner? Like you cannot make the same excuse as the person on the other side if you aren't willing to work through that, if you aren't willing to talk to your partner and explain why you want to invest in a coach yourself. Maybe your partner looks at it as like, dude, you're a coach. Like, why do you need a coach? Appropriately explain that, like appropriately, because the lead that you were talking to is going to go to their partner and they're probably going to be like, okay, but why do you need a coach, right? Like you need to kind of prime yourself to be able to have those conversations to then be able to help someone else through those conversations. So I just think it's putting yourself in the seats that you can and being okay with being vulnerable as a coach, because it is a level of vulnerability when you have to go in and hire someone, like, and admit that you don't have all the answers. Like it can be something that I see how it can be perceived differently than how you want to, but it's not as, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as deep. It's not as deep as you think it is. Like it's just,
Yeah.
you can work through this so much easier than you think sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I always think about that too when I'm on a tougher sales call or like even on a call with a coach. Like the first business mentorship I had, like I had just had surgery less than a month prior and we had hospital bills. We had like, I mean, our insurance wasn't covering it. Like we had a deductible to pay. And so we weren't financially probably in a spot to like invest $7,000 into the coaching that we did. And I remember I got to that and I was like, well, I have to talk to my husband. Like not knowing, being so unaware that that's a common objection that happens. Like that was just genuinely me being like,
It's
I'm
an
like laid
investment.
up. I'm like laid up on the couch, like still can't walk without crutches. Like, hey, I need to talk to my husband. She's like, no worries. Just like, is he home? I'm like, yes. And she's like, talk to him. And I
Yes.
was like, what the fuck? So I like mute my, and I'm like talking to him and he's like, okay, well
Maybe we
just,
were on the same sales call because this
yeah,
sounds
I know. I was like, so I told him the price and he's like, well, let's just pay it in full. And like, I was not expecting
yeah.
that, which again, same thing. Like, I'm very happy. I have a very supportive husband. And now it's funny. We laugh now. Cause like now I just am like, oh, I'm just going to pull the trigger and I'll just tell him later. Cause
Yeah.
like he is supportive of it as long as it's going to pay off in the end, which so far we've been good. So far there hasn't been any bad investments, but, yeah, it's just funny. Like it's sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone. If you aren't willing to get out of your comfort zone, you can't expect to be having others just drop everything and get out of theirs as well.
Yep. 100%. There are
So,
so many scenarios where we could compare it and say like, well, if this happens, then this happens. And again, it's so nuanced because there's obviously going to be the other side of the coin where maybe you haven't experienced it. But I think when you just look at it from a lifestyle basics and the standard you set for your clients and the standard you set for leads getting on sales calls with you, like, are you willing to meet that expectation? Are you willing to meet that standard? And are you willing to be solution oriented yourself through the same challenges that your clients have? So there's going to be so many different scenarios. And I actually have a really good friend of mine who is a pelvic floor therapist. I might have talked about her before. We should definitely bring her on the podcast because she's amazing. But I was actually her business coach. That is how we got connected. And she was like, I want to work with like moms. I just want to work with moms. It's what I feel called to. But the biggest challenge in her head was that she didn't want kids herself. She was like, I don't see myself becoming a mother. Like, and I feel that that can be a really hard
mhm.
like thing for me to be like it's not like she wants to go talk about it. She's not trying to make her brand about her not wanting kids. But when your brand is about helping mothers and kind of talking about that emphasis, but she likely will not be a mother herself, it was kind of this weird thing. But again, going back to the knowledge set, I'm like, dude, you went to school for physical therapy, you became a pelvic floor therapist, like you have all the skills you need to help someone. Again, the emotional side, I'm sure there's this disconnect from moment to moment, maybe, but she has done the work to emotionally understand and build the intelligence that she needs to coach moms through it because that's her whole niche now. Her whole niche is pelvic floor and moms. She's done the work. If you want to try to embody your ideal client, but you may not necessarily be your ideal client because maybe you've never been a mom before, or never been a nurse before, or never been a 9 to 5er, it's okay, but are you doing the emotional intelligence work to actually get to understand that? And honestly, sometimes the emotional intelligence shit is boring. Like it can be so boring
For
listening
sure.
to podcasts and reading books and doing trainings and like all those things, but you actually pick up on a lot more than you think. And sometimes the boring shits gets you exactly where you need to go more times than not
Yeah.
to learn how to help someone through it. So
Yeah.
yeah, just don't hold a double standard. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh shit, I need to go look in the mirror real quick, like write down the expectations you have of your clients, write down the standard, write down the culture that you are trying to hold in your business and in your coaching. And if you're looking at that and you feel disconnected from it, address it. And if that's coming to, Kelsey and I and being like, holy shit, I listened to your podcast. Like, how do I get out of this like funk? We'll talk through it. Like there
Yeah.
is no shame in it as long as you are willing to work through it. If you can identify the gaps and then effectively work through it, you will be okay. Like we are not saying that you are a bad coach all because you don't track on the weekends, but we will help
Yeah.
you understand how to track on the weekends so you can better help your clients with that.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I was like, I've never given homework on the podcast, but I just like encourage you if you're listening to this, like just once you turn the podcast off, go and just sit in silence and write down like just I think just almost like word vomit onto paper of like what things your clients are doing right now that maybe tick you off, that irritate you, clients that are just really irking you, and like reflect on that. And maybe there's some clients I'm saying like I will say there are some clients that you're doing everything right in your life, you're setting the example, and they still will not be adherent. So you may reflect on this and be like, nah, I'm chill, like everything's fine. But just talk about those little nuances. Write down those little nuances of things that clients are doing that may be irritating you, and then reflect on it yourself. Are those reflections of you as a coach right now? Like, are you doing some of these things? Are you setting a double standard? Like, kind of go back, like, and just determine if that is like a projection, and if that is something maybe you're doing right now. And I think it'll be really easy to work through that. But like Chris said, like, we're always here if you want to talk. Like, Chris and I have been through many things and had to work through a lot of different mindset stuff as a coach, and do a lot of learning. We always say like we've walked so you can run, and so we're here to help if you have questions on this or want to work through anything. There's no shame. Like if this was you and you feel called out, it's okay. Sometimes we need to be called out to become better coaches. So like accept it with open arms and know that we aren't personally coming to call you out. It's just something we've noticed in the coaching industry. So we're always open to have a conversation, and in a non-judgmental way. We listen and don't judge. So
Truly. It's not even sarcasm. I'm like,
literally,
no, like when coaches come to me and they're like,
yep,
okay, like don't judge me, but I'm like,
there's no judgment.
zero judgment, like
We've
zero
probably done it.
judgment. We have all been there. Like our school group, our calls that we host on Mondays and Fridays, like I think it is just so powerful for us to have like a safe space for coaches to just talk very like candidly because they usually on social media are tiptoeing around like the very issues and concerns and they're trying to be everything. And so that's another thing too. If you guys like are feeling a little bit of a gap in support and community, like start surrounding yourself with the very people that you need to grow with. Put yourself in rooms where you can grow, whether that is like attending our school group calls or joining a mentorship or, you know, making friends with the local coaches that you've seen in your area, like sending them a DM. Surround yourself with that support too, because I think embodiment is easier when you surround yourself with the very people that like set that same standard. Like Kelsey makes me feel like I can be a better person, right? And I have people in my life that like I can see and be like, my friend Paige, I look at Paige and I'm like, gosh, I look up to her so much. And I love putting myself in rooms with people that I'm like, hey, they're above me in my head, right? Like I'm like, they're above me, but that makes me want to be better, right? Like that
Yeah.
puts me in the right headspace. So it could also just go as simply as like you just surrounding yourself with more of the high performers and the higher standards that people set for themselves. And maybe that's not your best friend and that's not your mom and that's okay. Like they don't need to be those people. But you're going to stay stuck if you don't put yourself in different places to grow.
Yep. Mic drop. I feel like cringy that I just said that. But we will drop a link in the bio for just ways to connect with us, or links, ways to connect with us, ways to like join our school group. And then when will you guys be listening to this? Like what day is it today?
No, like actually, we're also not filming on our usual filming day, so it's
yeah.
I'm
May
in
21st.
disbelief that it's May right now, so it's fine.
Gonna be May. And it's like going quickly too. Like we're already a third way through the month. What's happening?
Don't remind me.
We'll have all those links in the bio for you. So if you are interested in checking anything out, we look forward to also just connecting with you in general. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.